Hi, I'm Michelle Begue with a look at what's happening in Latin America now. But first, our news trivia. In which Latin American country are police discovering the existence of illegal private zoos holding caged exotic animals? We'll have the answer later. Let's start with my colleague Al Baverstock in Mexico. He has a special report about Acapulco's recovery from the devastating storm, Hurricane Otis.
Hurricane Otis devastated the Mexican beach resort of Acapulco last week, causing $15 billion in damage and claiming dozens of lives. Otis arrived earlier than predicted, breaking records by developing from a tropical storm into a Category 5 hurricane in the space of just 12 hours, the fastest strengthening of a tropical cyclone ever recorded in the northeastern Pacific. As a result, it caught many off guard. Vital infrastructure was knocked out. Homes and hotels sustained serious damage. The arrival of emergency services was slowed by flooding and landslides, and to make matters worse, looting began in the hours following the tragedy. Mexico's historic beach resort, whose economy depends almost entirely upon tourism, now faces a long and painful road to recovery.
Panama is experiencing a public outcry over an open-pit copper mine. Protests first broke out on October 20th and have not let up. This comes after the country's Congress approved a law allowing a Canadian company to operate an open-pit copper mine in Panama for the next 20 years and options to extend the contract for another 2 decades. President Laurentino Cortizo suggested holding a referendum on December 17th so citizens could vote whether or not to allow the contract. The Electoral Tribunal said the conditions are not in place to hold a vote. This caused an increase in the demonstrations and forced the Department of Education to close schools. Colombia held regional elections this past weekend, and the opposition won. Citizens voted for mayors, governors, and regional lawmakers across the country. Many of the winners are opposed to left-wing President Gustavo Petro and his party coalitions. In Bogotá, Carlos Fernando Galán won the mayoral vote. Trailing behind in third place was the ruling party's coalition candidate. President Petro congratulated the winning candidates and, despite the defeat of his allies, said he planned to work together with the winning opposition candidates. Argentina is a major producer of shale oil and gas, and since last week it's begun experiencing shortages because of refining problems and a delay in imports. All of this comes from a lack of U.S. dollars. The shortages are causing anger and frustration as citizens must wait in long lines to fill the tanks of their vehicles. Only a few stations still have petrol. This is the most acute fuel shortage Argentina has experienced in years, and it comes ahead of a presidential runoff happening in November. The election will see the candidate from the ruling Peronist Party, economy chief Sergio Massa, run against the libertarian Javier Milei. Now let's check out the stories we're following for next week. First, we're following power supply disruptions in Ecuador that also began this week. Droughts in the Amazon region are lowering hydroelectric power generation. Authorities say they will implement rolling blackouts of up to 4 hours a day throughout the country until early December. Colombia and Peru are hoping to alleviate the severity of the power outages by promising to export electricity to the country. Second, the Bolivian Foreign Ministry announced the breaking of diplomatic relations with Israel and called for an end to violence in Gaza. Hours after the announcement, Chile and Colombia, in that order, announced they had called their ambassadors in Israel for consultation. Chile is home to one of the largest Palestinian migrations in the world. We will be monitoring diplomatic relations in Latin America to the conflict in the Gaza Strip. And now the answer to our news trivia. The answer is A. In 2022, Ecuadorian police seized almost 7,000 wild animals being held illegally on private properties. They belong to a network of clandestine zoos, reportedly being set up by narcos in the style of Colombian drug traffickers from the 1970s and 80s. Ecuador has become a growing hub for the drug trade, and possessing exotic animals is a status symbol for the drug lords, much like owning a luxury car, jewelry, or art. Officials fear the growing trend will put Ecuador's ecosystem at risk. Ecuador is one of the most biodiverse nations on the planet and contains abundant wildlife.
And that's it for this week. We'll see you again soon on Latin America Now.